Hello, 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 and welcome to this very special LinkedIn Live episode with myself, Mildred Talabi, and my special guest for today's show, Yinka Ewuola. So I feel like I just butchered that, Yinka. My gosh, how can I? Perfect, perfect,
I
perfect.
will
Okay,
say that
okay.
again. It was perfect.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. I should know better. I definitely should know better. But listen, I am so excited for this conversation that we are about to have. And if you are in the audience and you're tuning in or you stumbled across my page or Yinka's page and you're like, oh, this is exciting. These people are live. We are live right here on LinkedIn. So, and if you've never been to a LinkedIn Live before and you don't know how it works, this will be broadcasted live right now, and then as soon as it's done, the replay will be available on the page in case you start like you missed the beginning or anything like that. You can watch it all. But listen, I want to know who is tuned in live with us right now because it's been a while since I've got live here. Now, Yinka, you do it every week, don't you? So
I do. So
you,
yeah,
you
1:30 p.m. UK time on a Wednesday. I go live for like 20-30 minutes. And yeah, we did episode 148 today. So yeah, it's been a
wow.
while.
104. Now that's what I call commitment. That is absolutely what I call commitment. That is so great. So yeah, there was a time I was doing lives a lot and then I kind of took a little bit of a break and it's been about well over a year, but I'm excited for this conversation because today we are going to be discussing a topic that I know so many of you are interested in, so many of you maybe struggle with, so many of you are trying to get your head around, especially if you're a woman in business. It is the topic of inbound versus outbound. Which strategy actually gets you clients on LinkedIn? Because we're talking about LinkedIn here. We're not talking Instagram. We're not talking TikTok. We're not talking about, I don't know, what other platforms are there? I don't care about those other platforms. That other letter one that we don't talk about.
Please, guys. Friends.
Yeah, exactly. We're not talking about all those other platforms because we are professional women, we're business women, we're here trying to build our business on LinkedIn. So we're gonna get to the root of which strategy is better. So if you are tuning in, please drop a hello in the comments to let us know that you're tuning in with us and let us know what part of the world you're tuning in from, because I know there's people all over the world who tune into this LinkedIn Live. Like Beverly is here. Hi Beverly, good to see you. Hi Nzinga. Good to see you both, ladies. Keep on dropping your hellos in the comments as we go through. But listen, so this special episode is all about if you don't know, like if you've been living under a rock, right? I have a podcast called Start Being Visible. And I'm in season 3 at the moment. And this is actually the final episode of season 3, the 10th episode and the final episode. So I kind of decided to go with a bang with this conversation with Yinka. Now, the way this conversation came about, I will tell you in just a moment, But first, I think it's probably good that we introduce ourselves to tell the audience a little bit about who we are and why we're here and why we're kind of, would you say qualified, Yinka? Are we qualified to have this conversation? Should we own that?
100%.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So I'll give you a little bit of background about me, then I'll hand the mic over to Yinka, and then we'll get into this topic. And I want you to, as we go along, I want you to get involved, ask your questions in the comments, give us your thoughts, give us your opinion, all of it. We're here for all of it all. We want you as part of this conversation. So for those who are listening on podcast, you'll get the cleaner version of everything, but you'll be able to access everything also if you head over to our LinkedIn and you can see the comments and all the chats there. But okay, hi Ekwa, good to see you, Jackie, Loretta, Barbara, Joy, so many of you ladies. Keep on saying hello in the comments. We're happy to have you here. But in terms of who I am, so my name is Mildred Talabi, if you don't know, and I have spent the past kind of 5 years or so helping women show up on LinkedIn through my mantra, which is start being visible. So I really believe that this idea of us kind of waiting to be recognized, hiding our skills, hiding our expertise, and just, humbly moving along in life isn't serving us well, doesn't serve us well, and doesn't allow us to have the impact that we're created for. If you want to attract clients for your business, you need to be visible. If you want to promotion at work, you need to be visible. If you want to make a difference in the world, you need to be visible. So I've written a book called Start Being Visible. I have a podcast called Start Being Visible. I coach clients on how to start being visible on LinkedIn. And today we're going to have a conversation about how this whole strategy of visibility and other ways of reaching people on LinkedIn, you know, which one is a better approach? Like, we're going to get to the bottom of it in just a second, but let me let Yinka introduce herself to tell us a little bit more about the wonderful work that she does.
First, thank you, Mildred. I really appreciate you having me, and I'm really excited to have this conversation. So good evening, ladies and gents. My name is Yinka Ewuola. I'm a business strategist, and I support women to create wealth in and through their businesses. And I do that by helping them to focus on what matters most for the business, which is cash flow and strategy. And then also to help them to focus on what matters most for the business owner, which is mindset and habits. So that is the core focus of my work. And I do what I do because I have a really burning, passionate purpose around ensuring that women do create wealth. Not just within the businesses that they run, which is really important. So many women run businesses and actually don't make any money within the business. But even more importantly, that the business is a vehicle for them to fuel their dreams and to live their best life and to focus on a mantra that I am so passionate about. It's literally the focus of my next venture, and that is about ensuring that women are able to be both rich and rested. So that's what I do. And that's why I do it.
Rich and rested. Who doesn't want to be rich and rested? I love it. Sign me up, Yinka.
I will slide into your DMs.
I love it. I love it. And the thing is, and I believe, I love what Yinka just said, and I believe that a lot of women don't make the money in their business. This is how what we do kind of ties in a way, because they are not visible. Nobody knows that you have a business. You set up this business and you're at home or you're whatever, and you're like, why is nobody buying from me? Because nobody knows you exist. You are not visible. So we need to start being visible. But okay, listen. So this discussion came about, this topic that we're discussing today, which is all inbound versus outbound, the best strategy to attract clients. Because maybe about a month ago, I think it was, I did a post on LinkedIn, right? As you do, you know, because I'm visible, I show up on LinkedIn every day, every weekday. So I put a post out and I said, I'll read it to you because it's only 6 lines, right? I said, thought leadership is the antidote to cold sales on LinkedIn. Position yourself as a thought leader, share relevant and useful content regularly, and your audience will find their way to you. It will take commitment, it will take consistency, but it will be worth it. And I was like, bang, I put that out there. That's what I believe. Thought leadership, antidote to cold sales. And here comes Yinka. Here comes Yinka in my comments. And she's like, I agree with you, but so Yinka, what was your but to that statement? If you can remind us.
Well, I guess, well, first of all, I loved the post, and anyone who spent any time around my LinkedIn will know that I first of all do my own comments. In an age where AI is all over LinkedIn comment and there's bots and this and that, I am the person who is commenting. And I thought that the premise that you started with, I think, is really powerful. And yet, I mean, the word that kind of made me go, is the word antidote, because it makes it seem like cold sales is a problem and therefore thought leadership is the medicine. And I was like, well, I think there's more to this conversation than putting those two in juxtaposition to one another. I think that what it takes to have a successful and sustainable business needs a little bit more conversation. So that was where I was a bit like, the word antidote is giving me something that I think we need to talk a bit more about. So that was my initial thoughts.
So we went back and forth a little bit on that post, and then we got in the DMs and we're like, listen, this sounds like this would make a good discussion on a LinkedIn Live. So here we are. And I do actually think that cold sales is a problem. I do. I do, because it definitely is a problem to me when I have people randomly showing up in my inbox on LinkedIn offering me some kind of nonsense. Sometimes they offer me the very same thing that's on my profile, like, I can help you make clients on LinkedIn, I can help you get visible on LinkedIn. I'm like, what?
Okay.
Clearly you didn't read my profile.
But that's the point. That's the point. And I love that we're jumping in at this particular point, because what you're describing as cold sales is poor sales. And I really want to make that distinction. Cold obviously implies that there is no prior relationship, but just because there's no prior relationship, it doesn't mean you have to be a poor salesperson. Even if the person knew you, anyone offering you visibility services, honestly, should go and get a pair of, they need to go to Specsavers. It's so clear that that's what you do. And there is nothing that says that, someone who knew you before wouldn't offer that to you if they were a poor salesperson. So what I want to distinguish between is the idea of all cold sales being poor, because that's not the case. I also want to distinguish between the idea of cold sales that serves the client, that help, and pitch slapping, because no one likes to be pitch slapped. Like, literally, that's the bane of everyone on LinkedIn's life. No one wants someone to slide into your DMs and then say, oh, and let me tell you about the thing that you never asked me to tell you about for the thing that you didn't ask me about. No one wants that either. But cold sales and poor sales are not the same thing and don't necessarily have to go together.
Okay. So I think then it's a good idea, before we go even deeper, to have some simple definitions of what, when we say inbound sales and outbound, exactly what it is that we're talking about. So how would you define that? And then I'll give you some of my definition, but how do you define inbound sales versus outbound, Yinka?
Okay, so for me, inbound and outbound is as it sounds in the words, in terms of the distinction between in and out. So inbound sales makes use of, as you rightfully highlighted, strategic visibility, where you share with your audience who you are, what you do, what you have to offer, the reasons why your offer is going to be a great fit, and people self-select, put their hand up and say, yep, that sounds like something that's going to help me. That sounds like something I need. Let me step forward and let me put myself in line to, discover more, find out more, and come and engage with your work. So that's inbound as I define it. From an outbound perspective, it also makes use of strategic visibility, because fundamentally, particularly when you are going outbound to clients who may not know who you are or have any previous interaction with you, the first thing they're going to do is go to your profile, check who you are, and check what you've been saying. So the outbound done well still uses many of inbound's tactics, but the difference there is you are on your mission. So you say to yourself in your own mind, as I do each day, that I have something of value to help somebody. There are women out there who, in my case, for example, there are women out there who do incredible things in the world, who make a real impact. And right now they are upset, they are challenged, they are not enjoying running their businesses because they are experiencing inconsistent cash flow. And so I take it upon myself to, rather than let them find me, I take it upon myself to go out and find them. And so I will proactively reach out to them. I do not sell anything unless someone asks me for information about what I'm selling, but I will go out there and I will seek people who could be a good fit for my offer, to develop connections and relationships, and to create the environment and opportunity for them to, first of all, buy into the idea of who I am as a person, then buy into the idea of what I have to offer to help them with the problem, and then potentially, if it's the right fit, to buy into the opportunity to join the offer and solve the problem. So that's how I define inbound versus outbound.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so that's good. So, and for both approaches, you talk about visibility being a key part of both. So I guess it and we'll delve into that a bit more as we go along. I think my definition is of course similar, and I found some as well, some definition online that I thought, Yeah, that's exactly sums it up in a way that I think is quite simple as well. So inbound marketing is the process of attracting customers by providing valuable content. So inbound is pretty much, as you said, it's pretty much fixed around what you're putting out into the world. Whereas outbound marketing is you actively seeking out potential customers. In my head, it's like when you do inbound, and you can probably tell I'm more of a fan of inbound, right? When you do inbound, it's like it's the difference between being the hunter and the hunted. So the hunter's the one who's going outbound, going to chase the prey. Whereas if you're inbound, you're the prey that's being chased, in a sense. Obviously, if you're a deer, right, and it doesn't quite work in the same way. But the idea of it is that when you're inbound, another definition is like it's a magnet. Inbound marketing is like a magnet. You're pulling your ideal customers to you because you're putting stuff out that they're resonating with. So therefore, they're drawing to you through your content, through your visibility, etc. Whereas outbound is like I see it more kind of like I wouldn't say a scattergun approach, but just sort of you're throwing things out there, hoping it will stick. You have a big net and you're throwing that net wide out there. Who can I catch in my net? Because I'm just trying to hit people with this approach. So
okay, so I think we both agree on the definition of inbound. I think the difference between our definition of outbound is actually quite important, because one of the reasons why, and like you said, you are a bigger fan of inbound. What my approach, I would say, is integrated and hybrid. So on a day-to-day basis, my business will be doing both inbound and outbound, but I really see the value of outbound. But the reason I see the value for outbound is because of two things. Number one, because as someone who wants to build it and create a sustainable business, and I spent some time talking about it today in my post. Like everyone has the reasons why they are building their businesses and what they're creating in the world. I see my business as a vehicle for so many things, including generation changing wealth. So I am building wealth in my business. My business, last year was our first 7-figure year. That was a dream when I started my business. That was like the most ridiculous goal that I didn't even know how I was going to achieve. And so, I'm grateful every day that, to have agreed that, that level in sales in a single year, that was the goal. We achieved the goal. Happy days. But the thing is that I'm actually on a mission. And the mission that I am on is not necessarily to sell a product to every person. Like as someone who runs a business, I'm fully aware that my marketing is going to touch more people than my products ever will. So when I am out there and I'm doing outbound, I'm not just there to sell the product. I'm actually there to spread a message. And that for me is the reason or the distinction between the way that I think lots of people think about outbound. They think it's about, as you said, going out there, hunting people to buy your offer, to do the thing. And I'm like, no. I have a message to share. I have I have something of value. I know 90% of businesses go out of business in 5 years or less. So I know that in 60 months, 9 out of 10 businesses will be gone. And I know that I can continue, and I do every day. I've been daily on LinkedIn now for 5 years and 2 months. So I know that I can put out resonant content every single day to help the people, find me and to talk, discover more about my world. And I can actually proactively go out there and share more about this mission, share more about this message. And so when it comes to outbound, it isn't only to sell the offer, it's also to sell the message. And I think that when you see it that way, anyone who is mission, I talk about this all the time in my spaces, and I've just seen Shirley Ann's comment of, ooh, scatternet, not in Yinka's world. Exactly that. It's not a scattergun approach, because it's not a thou shalt buy my stuff focus. It is we are on a mission. And the last thing that I would want to happen is for someone to need what I have. And because they weren't fortunate enough to find me, that they should not have what I have to offer.
I would say to that, Yinka, maybe there's a few people like you who do outbound the way that you do, right? You know, and then maybe the people you train. But the reason that a lot of the women that I encounter, you know, and you know, some former clients as well, like hate that approach is because we're all used to outbound as the way that you I described at the beginning that you said is more kind of bad, poor sell as opposed to code selling, right? We're used to outbound being people who are they're not trying to sell a message, they just want my money. You are reaching out to me not because you have this big purpose in mind, you don't have a mission, you just want my money, and I can see that from miles, and it's off-putting, you know. So how do you distinguish yourself from that? You know,
well, this is the thing, and you're absolutely right. I so many people have been sold poorly, whether outbound or inbound. You know, you've walked into a shop on the high street, and you've had 8 people like rush to you and try and sell you stuff and spray something in your eye, and we have all been sold too badly. But I don't think we would say because we've had a poor experience of sales that we are not going to sell. The fact is that you're absolutely right. Our role, therefore, is to distinguish ourselves in terms of what it is we have to offer and what we're intending to do. Just in the same way with money. You know, my work really does center around and focus on, how one of the phrases that I use often in my spaces is that if you do not make the money matter, you won't make money that matters. Now, the reason why I talk to women and share that with women is because I work with so many women who it can only be described as hearts of gold. These are some of the nicest women you have ever met. But because they have been taught to be nice, that translates into all sorts of things: undercharging, porous boundaries, and building businesses that are not going to last. If you have a brilliant offer, then the kindest thing you will ever do is build a sustainable business so that I can fall in love with your offer today, and 5 years from now, your business will still be in business and I can still use your offer then. And so you're absolutely right. And I am not making excuses for anyone who's going out there pitch slapping people, upsetting people's DMs, or generally making a nuisance of themselves. But just in the same way that we wouldn't tar all of money with the brush of the people who do poor things with it, I don't think we want to tar all of outbound with the people who do poor things with it.
okay, I'm all for that. I'm all for not tarring everybody, but the outbound crew, they've really done themselves a disservice. You know,
Yeah, they need better PR.
They definitely have. So, just out of interest, how much of your business activities, percentage-wise, would you say is inbound versus outbound?
Well, this is the thing, and this is why I love outbound, because outbound gives you control. You talk, and again, I loved the distinction between the hunter versus the hunted. I'm definitely not, like, as you said it, I was like, I don't really like the idea of being hunted, but I totally understand that. But yeah, the predominant amount of my work and my sales came from my intentional seeing someone who I think is brilliant for my work, engaging with their posts, looking at their work, actually identifying, getting their language around the problem, and then reaching out to them. So for me, it was definitely more than 50%, probably about 65-35 outbound versus inbound. But one thing I know for sure, and again, because I'm always seeking to up-level my own knowledge and skills in this area, there are entire businesses that you have never heard of that are multi-million-pound businesses who do nothing but outbound sales. And what they do is they develop lists, and the beauty of outbound is that it enables you to decide who you want to transact with. And that's important because 50% of the success of any offer that you are going to put in the market is dependent upon who you decide to do business with. And that's the thing. By going outbound, by deciding who you want to work with, you get to decide who you are pointing your offer to and who you are choosing to do business with. And so there is an element of control and an element of intentionality that I really love about outbound. Makes me a real big fan of that opportunity for businesses.
Mm-hmm. I think in the same way, what I really love about inbound, right, is this whole like I get it about having the control over like who you reach to, but inbound actually does more than sales. So if you have a business, of course you want to build sales, of course you want the money through the door, of course you want the cash, else you don't have a business. You have an expensive hobby at the least, at the most, right? But with inbound, when you're putting yourself and you're using inbound strategies, you also get to build more than just a business. You get to build a brand. You get to build things like influence. You get to build things like opportunities can come to you that are not specifically just about a client transaction where someone is paying you for a service, whether that's a speaking engagement, whether that's a podcast opportunity, whether that, for me, I've been flown to countries I haven't been before, unpaid speaking engagements through my inbound, but that was not my goal to attract those opportunities, but those opportunities came to me anyway because of this whole focus on inbound and being visible and putting yourself out there as a strategy. So I do believe, like, so if yours is kind of 60-40, you said, so mine would probably be 85-15 on inbound. Probably even 90-10, if I'm honest, in terms of how I've been able to build my business on LinkedIn.
No, I love it. And you describe something really important, which is neither of us are 100 and 0. Like the point is about ensuring that, one in business is the most dangerous number of all. But also, it's really important to recognize that the thing that we are, even though we're talking about kind of the client acquisition piece, the thing that we are wholeheartedly agreeing on is that visibility piece, is that content piece, is the quality, is that thought leadership piece. That is just as essential in outbound as it is in inbound. It's a question of who does what when in terms of inbound versus outbound, but you have to, your ability to be effective, particularly on LinkedIn, and to be excellent at outbound is absolutely supercharged by your desire and consistency and intentionality around the messages and content that you put out there. No one cares about me specifically, especially not if I slide into their DMs. Without having an understanding of who I am, what I do, what I'm about. And so everything that I'm doing from a content perspective, from, live streaming, from this conversation, all of that feeds into the opportunity for me to distinguish myself when I am outbound, as well as create the opportunities that have definitely come my way inbound too.
Mm-hmm. I do get that. And I think I want to also clarify the whole hunted thing. So yeah, because being hunted doesn't sound like in that sense, it doesn't sound so great. But what I mean by that is there's been countless of occasions where I've sat on a sales call, discovery call, whatever it is that you want to call it. And the woman at the other end has been like, Mildred, I'm already sold on you because I've been following you for however long. I've seen your videos. I've watched this. I've read your content. Usually it's people who are lurkers because they haven't been engaging. So I didn't know. They're like, listen, I'm ready. I just wanted this course so I know what services you have so I can see which one I'll sign up to. So it's not a case of whether I'm going to sign up. It's not a case. I didn't have to chase them and hit them on the head with my bats to say, buy my services. It's like, they're like, listen, I'm following you. I want to work with you, So I think that's like always been like my preferred method of like, listen, I'm putting myself out there. If you like today, as you said, someone's watching this and they're like, yeah, I love Mildred. I want to work with her. Someone's like, I hate Mildred. I don't ever want to work with her. Someone else is thinking that I love Yinka. I want to, but as you put yourself out there, you can then put yourself in a position where you're either attracting those people who are your people or you're not, So in a sense, it's kind of like, yes, it might not be as structured as you have your outbound and you go through a list of I'm going to reach these 100 people a day type of thing, but it opens the door for more to happen as 100%. I see it.
And the only thing that I would add to that, where, from in the outbound conversations that I've had that always make me smile and make me go out for more, is when you jump on those sales calls, and they have been watching you, like you said, they're lurkers. So they were never going to step forward. They're never going to engage. I cannot tell you how many people that I've reached out to, and they've said to me, thank you so much for reaching out to me, because I've been watching you for ages, because I'm sold, I've bought, I've done all the things, but there is still, they're still in the frame of their own thinking. And so maybe they were like, I wasn't sure if this was the right time. I wasn't sure if I was the right person. And the way that I often describe it is like being on a dance floor, because I like to dance. So like being on a dance floor and you hear a song and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this song. And you are on the dance floor and you're dancing, and there are people against the wall. And some of them are like, having conversations and what have you. And others, they're against the wall and they're nodding their head to the music. And you can see that they're enjoying the music, but they're not coming onto the dance floor unless you invite them. And that's literally the only difference between what you're describing and what I'm describing. They're like, I love this song. I'm like literally bobbing my head. This is the biggest tune. Like for me, it's 90s R&B. So I'm all in that, all Afrobeats.
Yeah, I agree with that. 90s R&B.
but they're never going to step forward onto the dance floor alone. And so all you do is you're like, I'm dancing on the dance floor. Come and dance with me. And they're like, woo. Thank goodness you asked me, because I so wanted to be on the dance floor, but I just didn't quite have that courage to do it myself. And so the number of times people have said to me when we get to the sales conversation portion of the process, because it is a process, just because it's outbound, do not think you're shoving your offers down anybody's throat. That's not how the process works. It's still about connection. It's still about relationship, and it's still about the right fit. But so many people have said to me, thank you for being that leader. Thank you for being the person who you could see, or from my comments, from the things that I said, you could see that I wanted this, but I just wasn't quite ready to step forward yet. So I'm really glad that you asked me. And so for me, I love the opportunity to give those people the opportunity to step forward where they weren't necessarily in that moment feeling quite brave enough to do so for themselves. And then we get to dance on that dance floor to that 90s R&B.
That's a 90s R&B. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. That I can get with. I can do some of that, But okay. So let's look at some specific discussion points, right? And if you're watching this and you're there as well, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comments as well. But so if we look at lead generation, and I put lead in speech marks because I actually hate that word. I hate the word lead. I actually hate the words inbound, outbound, all of these terms. For me, it dehumanizes the process of connecting with your potential client. So those are words I don't use myself, but okay. I've used it here because it's what it's called in marketing terms, So if we look at lead generation, which approach would you say is more beginner friendly for women in business? And the reason I ask this is again, some of the women that I've met and I've worked with are terrified of this whole outbound approach, because it's essentially you're going up to that stranger on the dance floor and you're asking them to dance. Maybe you don't have those visual clues that they're nodding and shaking their head to the music, but they're there. They could be nodding and shaking in their head, but you can't see it. So, but you can't see it. So first of all, how do you even determine that they're nodding and shaking to the music, right? Versus someone who's just standing on the wall. But so many women are terrified of that, go into that stranger and getting that rejection of, no, or blocked, you're a spammer, that kind of stuff. So which approach would you say is more beginner friendly for women in business?
Okay, so I would say that, again, if you separate the concept of, number one, if you're going to be on LinkedIn, get your profile sorted. That's inbound, outbound, get your profile sorted. The point at that point is that if you wanted to engage in a form of lead generation with a sorted profile, you could go outbound. You have what you need to go outbound. And to begin to spread your message, to begin to build relationships, to begin to test and listen to the market. So that is available to you at an earlier stage for effectiveness than inbound, because inbound, you need to create that visibility. You need to begin to build that momentum. You need to be intentional about the messaging and the value that you are putting out there. And so if you are starting a business, Outbound, I would say, is available earlier. However, and this is the big however, because fundamentally what you described, Mildred, in your introduction is really important. Most people, not just women, but most people make the mistake when they are thinking about going to engage with people in terms of thinking about this is about me. So rather than thinking about I have something to offer or I have a way to help people, they think about, oh, I am selling myself. And I have had conversations for as long as I've been on LinkedIn about the fact that that is not the party that we are in. There is no self-selling in the idea of if you are running a business, you are selling an offer. And so until you've done that work, both the segregation of your kind of self-worth and your, business offer, net worth, all of those kinds of things, until you've done that work, then all that will happen is you, as you said, you will have this fear of rejection, like paralyzing you. And if you have that fear of rejection, then of course you're not going to go for Outbound. You are going to keep writing, keep sharing value, keep doing the things until somebody steps forward to you. But therein lies the point. And this is where, for me, I keep talking about what it is you want to create. Because if you are wanting to create a sustainable business, then there is that work that needs to be done. There is that focus of recognizing that the market validates your offer, but it doesn't validate you. You validate you. You have to know, you have to do that inner work and determine that you are the prize. You have to understand that any no is a rejection of the offer at that time, not even forevermore. It might be the right offer, the wrong time, the wrong all of those things. But it is never directed at you individually. If you are a speaker, and in many of the spaces where the offer is quite personal, so, it can be very easy to think you're selling yourself if you're a speaker, but you're still not. You're selling the service of speaking. If you were unavailable that day, they would get a different speaker. And so it's really important to have the separation of those insights if you are to be successful. And so, as I said before, the Outbound is available earlier for beginners, but Inbound, if you haven't done that inner work and that inner strengthening, then Inbound is what most people are going to default to.
Mm-hmm. I kind of agree with, I think that's really good. I do think that's good. It's that the bit that I'm like, is the separation of self. And by the way, let me be clear. I really do agree. There's a separation of self. You are not your business. You are not your business. So don't take it personal. And you are also not your LinkedIn post, by the way. Detach your ego from your post. You put your post out there. Your LinkedIn post. Yeah, you are not a LinkedIn post. Put that out there. If it gets crickets, it's not because people don't like you. It's just the post. Leave the post alone. However, there is an element, especially if you have a service-based business, there is an element of yourself that's involved in the transaction. And this is the whole idea of building a personal brand around what you do, because sometimes there could be, I don't know, let's say there's 10 coaches in your network, 10 LinkedIn coaches in your network. There will be a reason why you'll choose Mildred over coach number 1 to 9. If we all offered the exact same thing, but for some reason you're drawn to Mildred better, maybe because you like her better, you like the way she shows up, you like whatever. So this is where there's an element of personal branding that allows you to kind of almost rise above the competition in a sense and distinguish yourself from just being the average person in the market, But having said that, though, I do agree with you that it's important that you don't think that you are your service or your product. However, I do think you have to understand there's an element of you that does go into delivering your service or business. Therefore, building that personal brand as a woman in business, especially if you're new to it, is going to be important if you're looking to set up a business that stands apart from everyone else.
Oh, 100%. And I don't think the point you've just raised and the one I did are stand in opposition, because what you're describing is a unique mechanism. So one of the things that we teach and I speak about in my spaces is the need for a unique mechanism, so that you are not, as you said, if there are 10 coaches who all offer a similar outcome, then what you are doing is you're going to have to find things to compete on, and the most easy to compete on is price. And the thing is, you do not ever want to get into that race to the bottom of being the cheapest person. And so what is often the best way to put yourself in what's called a category of one is to have a unique mechanism. And the way that each person will develop their unique mechanism, and you're absolutely right, is personalized. It will have personalized elements. It will have personalized stories. It will be featured. You know, when I work with women in business, I take a holistic approach to cash flow. Most people hear cash flow and think finance. And I'm like, cash flow is energetic, mental, relational, long before it's ever financial. So, and people are like, oh, okay, tell me more. Why? I know these things because of the journey that I have walked, why I came into business, my own personal experiences. And so, yes, right now, it is a very personal, unique mechanism. I developed that unique mechanism. But like I said, I'm growing a business. It is my intention to build my business to multi-7, 8 figures, 9 figures. I'm building a freaking empire over here. So the point here is that at no point will I ever be the person on sale. My ideas are on sale for sure. Absolutely. But the thing is, I have to be able to turn that into methods that other people can deliver. Methods, ideas, products, services, all of those kinds of things. So even in a service-based business, you are absolutely right. A, that personal brand is so important and so powerful. And B, that unique mechanism is a game changer for putting you in a category of one. But neither of those things are the essence or truth of you. And that's where it becomes a really great opportunity, as I said, to have that separation. Because if you don't have that separation, that's when people have this whole like, oh, charge your worth, which I still maintain is the internet's worst advice. Charge your worth is poor advice, because then people price their offers by their self-esteem. And they market on the base of how they feel about themselves. You can't run a successful business on your feelings. You cannot price by your self-esteem. And so making that separation and that opportunity to separate things is a really great opportunity, as I said, to build something that is sustainable and lasts beyond the personalization of your individual brand.
Mm-hmm. Plus, if you charge your worth, no one could afford you because you are priceless. Right? You ain't priceless, made in the image of God. Amen. Right. But okay, let's look at the pros and cons of each approach in practice, right? So first one, let's look at kind of like time. You're strapped for time. You don't have a lot of time. You can't get into both approaches. Which one is more time friendly? Doing inbound strategy or doing outbound strategy? Where do you land on that?
For what? For clients, for leads,
for clients, yeah, for getting clients. If you have little time to be on LinkedIn, which one will give you the most bang for your buck?
For me, where I am now, outbound is all, but I like it's systemized, it's a list. If I've got 10 minutes, I can drop 8 voice notes. It's a very straightforward approach for me personally. So if I'm time strapped, I would always go outbound. That's within my control.
Funny. I tried outbound because I've done all kinds of stuff, until I find what worked for me. And by the way, that's for you. If you guys try things and see what works for you and settle into that. But I find outbound so time consuming. This is before I hired a VA, and then it was just driving me nuts. This is like the whole sales navigator days of you have a list of like 100 prospects. First, you have to search the list, get the people who fit the bill of, okay, these type of women. And then you approach them, you reach out to them, you save them on another list, and then you message them this day, and then you have to wait 4 days. So it's not too soon. And then after that, I was like, oh my gosh.
I mean,
I'm not for this life.
Even listening to you, I'm like, Okay, no. And first of all, and again, full disclosure, and I should have said this 45 minutes ago, but I've never used Sales Navigator. I've never used it as a system. I have never used paid LinkedIn. So the way that I engage with Outbound actually is quite different. And honestly, the way you described it, I wouldn't want to do that either. So, but yeah, as I said, you know, for me, I have it honed to a system. So, you know, I do use specific software and I really focus in, as I said, if I'm time strapped, I go for what I can control. And I can write a fantastic post. I happen to think I do write a fantastic post. The only one that disagrees is LinkedIn. And you know, they go into like algorithms. But the point there is that whatever I put out in my post, the whole point of inbound is it's for them to be ready. And so the idea that I can control what other people do is false. That's, you know, nobody will agree that we can control others. And therefore, for me, if I was time strapped, I would focus on the things that are within my circle of control rather than my circle of concern. And that's my own action. So that's why I would go outbound.
Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know what Sales Navigator is, it's like a paid, essentially a paid super database that you can get from LinkedIn. It's quite a bit of an investment, but you can use it to track down a list of people, define your target audience right down to the very T of what demographic, where they work, you know, what's the age group broadly, all of that kind of stuff. I only ever done it on free trials of Sales Navigator, and sorry, don't tell LinkedIn. And no, it was not for me.
I was gonna say, you're a top voice, aren't you supposed to be like, wow.
Yeah, they might take my LinkedIn top voice away. You know, but okay, so we're kind of so that outbound, which is better for time. All right, let's do the next one. Pros and cons. What about if you lack confidence? You know, as I said already, some of the ladies I speak to, that outbound for them is scary. But then also, to be honest, so is inbound, because it's like you have to put yourself out there in terms of being visible. Being visible is not easy. You know, it's not without the fear, but you have to kind of overcome that fear, get out there and put yourself out there anyway. So if you're lacking confidence, which method is going to help you?
Okay, so it should be like a really simple answer, but it really isn't. So if you're lacking confidence in what specifically is the question that I had as you asked it. And the reason I asked that is because if I said to you, you need to make contact, for example, with 5 people, outbound, you could do that fully invisibly. So you don't have to post anything. No one even needs to know you were on LinkedIn. You could literally just go into those 5 people's DMs and go about your day. If you're lacking confidence, and again, it depends on what you're lacking confidence in, but putting out a post like could also be quite scary and could feel quite daunting to do. But again, because it has that, it's more of a broadcast, so it's less close proximity contact. If you were lacking confidence, I would say getting that post out there is probably what you would default to in order to make more progress quickly, to enable you to kind of get over that feeling, get something out there, really begin that conversation. So I would say the visibility piece and then allowing people to come to you will help you if you are lacking confidence. But the exposure therapy and the invisibility of outbound will probably help you build confidence as well as get the result.
Yes, visibility does help to build confidence, and also visibility and putting stuff out. There's less chance of rejection. No one's going to reject you from a post. No, you're not going to put a post and someone come and say, I don't like this post. I will never work for you.
Really?
Let me put it out. Because you're right. You do have some strange people sometimes online, you know, but generally, you're not going to get a straight out rejection from a post that you didn't direct at anybody, you know?
I can definitely say, as you said, getting that post out there and calling people in. The only challenge with that is getting the post out there is absolutely your action to do. You can't control that inbound traffic.
That's right. Okay, what about, you got few resources, whether that's people resources or money or time. We talked about time. So let's say people or money, you don't have a lot of money. Which one is going to get you better results to start with, inbound or outbound?
Outbound every time. Outbound every time. Put out your post, get in the DMs. Put out your post, get in the DMs. And like I said, it's predictable. If you spoke to 5 people every day for a month, that's 300 people. Even if you were awful at speaking to people at the start of that exercise, by the end you had 300 touch points. And so I honestly, if you are short on resources, I definitely, and as I said, it's about distinguishing. The visibility piece is non-negotiable in both instances, but putting out the post and then waiting for people to come to you. If you've got fewer resources, then you've got fewer pulls on your resources. So go and actually make stuff happen. So yeah, I'm definitely in the outbound camp on that front.
But it's very easy to put out posts. If you put out 1 post a day, 5 days a week, at the end of the month, you would have put out 20 posts, and each of those 20 posts are like your little soldiers out there doing work for you, reaching to different parts of LinkedIn and reaching that person. Maybe if you alternate between a video post or a text post or an article post, you're reaching different audiences at the same time. And then it's like, if we go back to that net, what you can possibly come back to you as a result of showing up in that way, inbound, has potentially got to be big. I don't know anybody who has consistently showed up on, and by big, by the way, I don't mean like big as in you're being flown over the world. I mean like as in you will get that, you will get opportunities come to you. I don't know anybody, any of my clients that I've coached, or myself even, who has shown up consistently every day on LinkedIn for a period of time without drawing opportunities inbound that they were not expecting in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, I do. I remember very vividly and had this conversation. And again, I'm not going to mention this person by name, but how we met was her saying, I have put out a post every weekday on LinkedIn for the last 2 years. I've got 0 clients and I've met loads of people, but nothing has happened. And that's the point. So as I said, the putting out the post is not, it doesn't fall into one strategy or the other. It's like the foundation. Put your posts out. Please get your posts out. Please be visible. Please take the opportunity to really like transform all of the opportunities available to you by getting those posts out. What then happens is inbound is waiting for people to come into you. Outbound is getting out there and helping people to come forward through your actions and your proactivity. And that's the thing. We are in an age at the moment on the platform where there are so many growth hackers. There are so many people who are doing unbelievable things. They're gathering followers in the hundreds, if not the thousands, every single day. And I know many of those people, and I know people who have more followers than they know what to do with, but they're not monetizing. And so it is very, and like you said, part of our advantages in this conversation is this is what you do, Mildred. There is no way that you will be talking about inbound without being able to monetize, because that's what you do, that you are the expert in that. My work focuses on cash flow. So all of my actions have to be I have to understand how to bring cash in when I am doing inbound, when I am doing outbound. The reason why I'm so passionate about outbound is because I love inbound and I love when people come into me. And I also love the fact that on the days when that doesn't happen, or on the days when the people that come into me are not the right fit for me, I can go out there and find the people that are the right fit for me. And so I just love the opportunity that it gives you to maximize your resources. But it make no mistake, getting that post out there, that thought leadership, that adding value piece, that getting that content out there is non-negotiable, whether you are waiting for inbound or whether you're proactively going outbound.
Absolutely. And I would say to your lady who posted for 2 years, I'd be like, what have you been posting now? And what were you doing? I think where inbound and outbound meet for me, it's like inbound is always first. As you describe it, they have to kind of show like, okay, I want you to invite me to the dance floor to dance, So this is where, so I'm not saying I never completely DM people or anything. I'm always like DMing people and engaging in conversations and all of that, because I genuinely love people and I genuinely love working with the people that I work with. But it's that whole thing of like, when I'm engaging, it's like, okay, I'm inviting you to something else. All right, maybe to my newsletter so you can get to know me in a deeper level. Maybe I've got a live event like this one, and it's like, okay, maybe this is potentially of interest to you. But just like the way that you're taught, and clearly this is not the way you teach, Yinka, the way these poor marketers, teach the outbound of just that whole cold, no relationship, nothing, just go in there with all of that. That has never worked for me, and it's never a way that I teach my clients to work. So I do have a strategy where you combine inbound with outbound, but with where the people have been warmed up first. And that's part of, actually, I'll talk about at the end, the challenge that I've got coming up. But yes, listen, we are, the time is going, and I want to get in any questions that you've got that we haven't answered yet about this whole topic, while I run a couple more things by Yinka on this topic. If you've got any questions that you want us to answer about this inbound, outbound specifically, please do drop them in the comments now while you still have time. Okay, I like Eko's comment that LinkedIn is a 3-point system: profile, content, and DMs. You need to do them all. Content writing is a skill. Absolutely. And thank you to the LinkedIn users who says that I'm finding this really useful. LinkedIn user, I can't see your name on my side, that's why I'm calling you LinkedIn user, but that I'm finding this really useful, and thanks, Yinka, for letting me know about it. So please drop your comments, drop your questions in the comments while we conclude these last bits. But a couple more questions, discussion points, Yinka, why those questions are coming in. So in terms of revenue versus brand equity, like, both are important, of course. You want the money, but you also want to build a brand, right? Because the way I see it, when you build brand equity, you're building for the long term as well. So one, you can't build a personal brand overnight. It doesn't happen. You don't show up and suddenly start getting all of this stuff. And you also can't build revenue overnight, So they're both going to take a bit of time. So where do you start building first, or can you do both at the same time in your view?
It's a really great question. Content is where you're building that brand equity every single time, no matter what you're doing with your leads in terms of revenue. So that is definitely a power opportunity for you there, as well as your LinkedIn profile. The thing I would say around revenue versus, I guess, kind of building for followers versus building for revenue is in the various spaces that I've gone to learn about content and monetization of content. The content that builds followers, builds brand, builds visibility is slightly different to the content that builds conversions. And so it's really important to understand that if you try to do both simultaneously, you're likely to do neither very well. And so for me, I definitely think it's important that you would start building that brand equity in your content. And again, this is one of the reasons why I really enjoy the outbound piece, but also the inbound opportunity will tell you the efficacy of your content, because you can build brand equity through the content, through the thought leadership, and through the value that you are putting out there, whilst getting into the DMs, being proactive, building relationships, touching base with people who are engaging on that content. And so it gives you the opportunity, that content piece gives you the opportunity to build that brand equity, and the DM piece will give you the opportunity to really build that revenue. So starting with that content is like the most paramount piece for that brand equity piece.
Yeah. And I would agree. The two do lead into each other, and it's not always straight away, is it? If we had to give a realistic timeline, I don't know about for you, it took me, I don't know, probably maybe 3 months, I would say, before I saw the first piece of direct revenue from me being visible on LinkedIn. But opportunities came quicker than that, quicker than cash, which was pretty interesting, which later on some of that opportunity included I even got into LinkedIn Live, because LinkedIn themselves are like, oh my God, we love your videos, we want to give you LinkedIn Live. We're going back 5 years now, when this was something that they were handing out and it wasn't available to everybody. So it's like the opportunities came before the cash. But then they soon kind of started working hand in hand with each other, because the more my audience grew, the more it was like, oh, Mildred teaches can you teach me how you do what you do on LinkedIn, and so forth. So they kind of go hand in hand. But I guess I definitely agree with what you said in terms of when you're building, you can see the people who are putting out content on LinkedIn specifically just to get people. Those content is written differently.
Yeah, they really are. But the other thing as well that I think is really important, and again, something that I often speak to, is you're exactly right. The beautiful thing about you being successful at what you do is you teach people to do that thing in the, being on LinkedIn, teaching people LinkedIn is meta as hell. Like you're like, every step that you take is proof and gives people the opportunity to see. But if you are not someone that's selling LinkedIn and selling LinkedIn based services, it's important to understand there is an additional step. And there is an additional thing that you have to be aware of if you're not selling LinkedIn specifically. And so I love that. As you said, that foundational piece of content is really powerful. The opportunities, absolutely, as you said, would come. It's always easier to transact non-financially before you can transact financially. But what I would definitely know for me in terms of from going, to daily content on the 16th of March, 2020, that was my first day. I know exactly the day that the first piece of inbound cash came in. And I know the date that the first bit of outbound cash came in. And trust me, it was, as you said, it was a couple of, maybe a month and a half before the first person stepped forward to me. But it took me like 4 days of being in the DMs to get the first piece of cash from an outbound perspective. And so, but again, that's what I do. I'm the lady who talks about cash. I'm the lady who solves for cash. And so that's the reason why, it's a powerful opportunity. But these are skills that business owners will need no matter what. I love your focus, and, you've been talking quite a bit about entrepreneurship, because whether you have a job or whether you are, running a business, you need to understand that entrepreneurial thinking. You need to be able to take what you have and turn it into an opportunity for yourself. And so these are skills that everyone is going to need, whether you've got a job, whether you run a business, whether you're going inbound or outbound.
Absolutely. I love that. And we are rounding up in about 5 minutes or so, but we've got some good questions that just come in that I want to get to before we close out and give you some opportunities to connect with us further. So I'm going to ask Nzinga's questions. But before that, the LinkedIn user, please type in your name so I can call you by your name. The one that asked about warm relationship and generating sales. While I'm reading out Nzinga's question, if you can do that, that would be awesome. So Nzinga's asking, which of the two strategies in terms of inbound and outbound can help you to retain clients that have become disengaged? Or is that a whole new strategy altogether?
For me personally, I mean, content is great. I think if they've become disengaged, waiting for them to step inbound is less likely to happen. It can, but it is less likely to do so. And so for me, where there is disengagement, where I'm able to control and have an impact is my own personal proactivity. And so I do think retention is a slightly different focus than kind of initial client acquisition. But certainly when I'm thinking about retention, again, my focus is proactivity. So my focus is, rather than waiting for them to step to me, I am stepping to them. I'm not kind of waiting for them to re-engage themselves, and I'm not waiting for them to see my content and then think, okay, cool, I should re-engage. If I know that I have something that's really of value, if I know that I have something that's really going to help them, and we've worked together before and we have a good relationship, then I'm definitely going to be the person who's like, hi, so great that, we did that work together. How are things now? Where are you now? Where are you trying to get to next? And can I help you?
Yeah, 100% agree. 100%. I agree that it's a different conversation altogether when you're bringing new people in the door and when you're keeping them once you've got them through the door. So I am with you with what Yinka said in terms of I would be proactive with that. But also, my ladies, now once you work with me, you have me in your corner for life. You know, my Visible Women Tribe ladies, they know that it's like I'll be there every now and again. I'm gonna pop up on your post and be like, "Oh, leave a comment." Or if I haven't seen you post for a while, I'll be like, "Where are you?" So it's that kind of thing. But it is a different conversation altogether. But I do think it's about proactively re-engaging with those people when once they've come out of your system. But that's a different strategy to the whole inbound, outbound, because that's about bringing people through the door first. Okay, final question from the LinkedIn user, who is Daniel. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing your name. Daniel says, the difficulty I have with outbound marketing tends to be moving from the initial connection to a warm relationship that might generate sales. Do you have any strategies for telling people what you do and how you can help them without sounding too salesy? Oh, that's a good question. Because that's the word so many people hate, salesy.
I know, and yet I will, full disclosure, Daniel, I'm not sure if you were here at the beginning, but I talked about last year being our first 7-figure year in my business. And every year, you know, many people choose a word for the year, and my word for the year last year was salesy. Like, I literally took that word, and the reason I took that word is because I think sales is one of the most powerful tools that we have as entrepreneurs, as human beings. If you've ever read the book by Daniel Pink, To Sell is Human, you will understand how powerful sales is. And so the idea of being salesy for me was about me saying that this isn't really about me or the money. This is about the mission. This is about getting you the thing that you say that you want. And indeed, it's about the thing that you say that you want. So one of the biggest shifts that turns poor sales into cold sales and poor sales into a great opportunity is remembering that your most powerful tool in sales is listening. It isn't the person who talks the best that makes the best sale. It's the person that listens. It's not the person who has the most, sexy or exciting product. It's the person that cares the most to listen to requirements and find the match. And so, yes, I am not one of those people who slides into people's DMs and says things like, how's the weather, or how it, like,
I hate those.
I'm like, I don't know you. I'm not going to tell you my life story. I'm not going to answer questions that you and I both know that you don't care about, and you're only asking me because you want to tell me something. Mm-hmm. So, but what I will do, and again, for me, one thing that works very well is I reach out to people I always talk about something that is relevant. Relevance is and context are your two most powerful starting points. So when I reach out to someone, I will always reach out to someone for a reason. And I'm clear about the reason. If I reach out to you because you commented on my post, then that's what I will say. If I reach out to you because you engaged on something, or I saw something you wrote, or if I reach out to you because I read your profile and you sound like a cool person and I'd quite like to know you, that's what I will say. So the first thing to know is that when I'm coming into your DMs, I'm honest. And it invites people to be honest with me. I've had people like, you sound awesome and I don't have time to talk to you. And I'm like, cool, see you in a month. Bye. I'm never offended by people's honesty. I want people to be honest with me because I'm going to be honest with you. But then on that basis, once I've shared, why, or I have come in with relevance and with context, then when you are building a relationship, there is reciprocity. So if I ask you a question and you answer the question, the next thing that is likely to happen is you are likely to ask me a similar question. And then on that basis, I'll tell you what I'm doing now. I'll tell you why I signed up. I tell you why I came into your DMs. And so because I am honest and I am clear about the fact that I'm not here to sell you on the offer, I'm here to build a relationship. I don't want everyone to be my client. I want the right people to be my client. And so if I approach you, it's because I think you could be the right person, but there's no pressure in that. Because on any given day, I'm speaking to many people. You might be the one, you might not be the one. but I've met some of some of the best people I know, some of the loveliest humans, some of the most incredible opportunities from me getting out there and starting conversations. And so the salesy element of that we're often trying to avoid is because we can all smell the desperation of someone who wants a sale. And no, desperation does not have a pleasant fragrance.
It does not.
Yeah. And so our intention is to make sure that we just take that pressure out and converse with people as humans, listen to what they have to say. And then on that basis, when you ask me what I'm doing here, I'll tell you. And then when I tell you, people are like, oh, that sounds interesting, or, oh, I need that, or, oh, I don't need that. Perfect. No harm, no foul.
Yeah. And I'm so with you on that, Yinka. And also like that honesty is important, and having a reason to reach out. So a heads up to everybody who's watching this. I will reach out to each and every single one of you after this to say, hey, thanks for tuning in, because that's what I do. I love when I do this LinkedIn Live. Afterwards, part of it, I reach out to everybody who engaged, who interacted. Thanks for tuning in. If we're not connected, I want to connect. If we are connected, how did you find it? What's your feedback? That's part of my relationship building strategy, and I love doing that with people. So, and I think when it comes to sales, it's really a mindset thing before it's an outward thing first. A book that I would highly recommend, Go Givers Sell More. It's a very small book. I cannot remember the name of the guy, but Bob Berg, I think it was, and somebody else, called Go Givers Sell More. It's really about, it will help you reframe this idea of selling being a bad thing. Selling is a service that we provide to people. There is no point having something great that nobody can access because you think sales is a dirty word or something dirty to do. But when you have that right mindset around selling, then when you're approaching people, naturally that salesy bit drops, because as Yinka said, you're not feeling that desperation of, I must have your business. It's like, I'm genuinely here to see if I can serve you. Oh, I can't. It's not a need for you. Okay, no problem. No sweat off my back or yours. We move on. So yeah, that's really it. And I know I said that was the final question, but very, very last tip. Anita wants one tip on how you can differentiate yourself if you are not selling LinkedIn courses on LinkedIn. So if your business is not about LinkedIn, mine is about teaching you how to be visible on LinkedIn and beyond, by the way, right? But because also in the workplace, because I work with career women as well. But if your business is not around that, can you give Anita, Yinka, one tip on how you can differentiate yourself in the crowd?
I really can. And Anita, I want to thank you for asking this question. And the thing I want to offer you is not only a tip, but I also want to offer you an example. So if we are not already connected, Anita, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and go and look at the last post that I posted today. So the post that I posted today, I'm beginning a series where I'm going to be sharing more about why I do what I do. Now, everybody on LinkedIn comes on LinkedIn and shares their why. And the exploration that I'm doing is that the why that you have for doing what you're doing sets you apart at a number of different levels. So it's not just about your origin story. And what I shared in the post before the last post is I shared 5 whys that really transform and supercharge your cash flow. So if you go on my profile and you click on all posts and the events tab, the last event will give you all 5 of those whys. I don't want to take up too much time here at the moment on Mildred's fabulous podcast. But the one of the most powerful ways that you can distinguish yourself is to allow your people to see how much you care. People will not care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the reason that you care is always going to be unique to your story. Like, as I said, Mildred and I, we have our preferences in terms of the kind of what we're doing on the clients, but there's literally, we could not be more aligned about the power of the intentional visibility and the power of your story, Anita. And so the one way that you get to really differentiate yourself in terms of your offer, in terms of the value that you have to offer, is to really go through and really help your audience to understand why you care about the problem, why you care about the method you develop, what pain, what hardship, what struggle, what challenge did you go through What did you try and it didn't work, so that you know now that you've created something that is rock solid? Helping people to understand why you care and to give them insight into the story that came before is one of the most powerful distinguishers, because it can never be replicated. I've seen so many of my posts like literally lifted word for word by other people. I'll never forget, I shared a post. I'm Yoruba, and I used the word wahala in the post. And this English Caucasian gentleman lifted this post and also used the word wahala. And I was like, bruh, you don't even know what it means. You don't even know what it means. Literally. And I was like, and right, totally busted. So you can take my words, but you can never take my story. You can never take what has brought me to this point, what has gone into creating the method that I know transforms people's lives. And so that is one way, through the expression of your content, really digging deep to help people to understand why you've included what you've included, why you've taken things away, is so, so powerful. So that would be my insight for you, Anita. Thank you for your question.
I love that. Listen, Stephen Bartlett on the Diary of a CEO podcast, he goes on for hours. So we've only been at this for like an hour and 15 minutes. So there's so much more we can talk about. But we are gonna round it up and we are gonna leave it there. But before we do, I just want to give you guys the opportunity to plug in some more with the work myself and Yinka does. So you can, of course, connect with both of us on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out, send a DM, send a message, whatever it is, send a connection request, and we'll be more than happy to accept you in our separate profiles. But also, I want to give you opportunity, if you do want to work with me some more, I do have something coming up that might be of interest to you. And Yinka does have a resource that's coming up, which she'll share with you in just a minute. So for me, I have this challenge that I do called a 30-day ABC challenge. It's an audience breakthrough challenge. So we talked today about inbound, outbound, all of that. But the method that I've created, which is predominantly through an inbound way, it really is a nice, easy way to find and connect with your target audience on LinkedIn for building your business. And it happens over a 30-day period. In that 30-day, I become your personal coach. We do this in a small group of women. And it's like we're checking in. You're going to be showing up on LinkedIn over that 30 days. Because I'll tell you how I really got started on LinkedIn, like properly building my brand, all these opportunities coming. It started with a 30-day challenge 5 years ago, and I haven't stopped since then. So I know how powerful it is to get involved in a challenge like this with like-minded people and with somebody who is passionate about the subject and knows what they're doing to help coach you through. So if you're thinking, I like what I heard today, I want to dig in a bit more, I want to find my target audience on LinkedIn, I would love your support to do this, Mildred, then get involved with my ABC challenge, which starts on Monday, the 2nd of June. For the whole of June, we're going to be doing this little bite-sized exercises per day. It's aimed at busy career business women. So don't worry, it's not going to take up all your time. It's just a nice, perfect dose of showing up and getting the targeted results as a process. So go to startbeinvisible.com/ABC for all the details. And for everybody who's listened to this LinkedIn Live, you get a 20% off if you use the code LinkedIn Live 20 in the next 24 hours, right? Because we got to put a deadline on it. Otherwise, you'll be there procrastinating. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Next thing you know, it's done. So startbeinvisible.com/ABC for all the details and use that 20% code. If you don't get it all and copy it down enough, this is going to be available on replay. So you can hear it again, you can copy it, and it will also be in the chat. And of course, you can reach out to me and I'll give you all those details myself as well. But I'm going to hand it over to Yinka, who has been a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous guest, to tell us a little bit more about how you can plug into the work that she's doing at the moment.
Thank you so much for the chance to share a little bit about this. So what I have coming up is entitled, the title of it is Inevitable Cashflow. I am really focused and passionate about ensuring that cash flow isn't enigmatic. It's not, one of the descriptions that Mildred shared at the beginning is, like throwing stuff and like seeing if it sticks. So many people approach their business in that way, in a very scattergun approach and a very unsure approach. They're not really sure what creates cash flow, how to actually bring it in, whether on LinkedIn or in any other spaces. And the fact is that many businesses, will thrive and do brilliantly on LinkedIn, and many businesses aren't on LinkedIn and can still make cash outside of the LinkedIn space. So the opportunity that you have to get involved with Inevitable Cashflow is it is coming up in the next couple of weeks. It is a brand new opportunity to spend a powerful amount of time with me. It gives you the opportunity to not only have powerful learning, but also a lab and a space to get earning. So many spaces when it comes to, come and get more leads, come and get more clients. Great. I'm not suggesting that none of that is valuable, but my work centers on and focuses on creating cash flow. And so this is really about ensuring that you get that cash flowing to you and you are able to do it in a way that makes it inevitable. And so we will be focusing on what you need to do on a day-to-day basis, how you build audience, how you really lock in this inbound opportunity, how you get outbound sorted, but more importantly, how you deal with the mindset piece, how you deal with cash flow before it ever becomes financial, how you deal with the mindset piece, the energy piece, the relational piece, the stories you're telling yourself to stop you to create the results that you want because you're worried about being salesy, you're worried about rejection. We are tackling all of those pieces of the puzzle to enable you to install this in your business and ensure that cash flow is inevitable. So if you want to find out more, I would love for you to slide into my DMs on an inbound flex. If you could slide in with the word visible, so that I know that you came from this broadcast, that would be super helpful. You have an incredible opportunity to join this time around because I am doing the live recordings going forward. Inevitable Cashflow will not only be a DIY resource, but it will also be an evergreen resource. So you will have the opportunity to access this whenever you like, but never at this price point and never live with me. And so if you want that opportunity to really dispel the confusion, take out the myths and really tackle the mindset, the actions and the habits you need to create inevitable cash flow in your business, slide into my DMs with the word visible and I will tell you more.
Love it, love it, love it. Get to sliding, people. Get to sliding. Well, that brings us to the end of this discussion. And I can see from the comments that this has been useful to you guys. So thank you so much for joining in. Part 2, someone asking for, who knows, maybe, right? Maybe. But Yinka, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your wisdom, and your time with us this evening. It's been absolutely great. And I'm sure we've all learned so much from this discussion. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mildred. I appreciate you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you again. I don't know when, over on LinkedIn. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.